Hello everyone, I've been a painting contractor for 25 years and the goal of this channel is to help make painting at home simple. For all of you do-it-yourselfers out there looking for professional results and wanting to save some money. So thanks for watching and please like and subscribe. We want to help as many people as we can. Thanks again. Hello everyone, today what we're going to do is we're going to paint a room. I want to show you step-by-step instructions on how we get a room ready to paint. But first, let's take a look at the bedroom we're in and give you some input. If you look around and span the room with the camera, you'll see everything we're here to do today. And you can see that in this particular bedroom, we have all the floors have been covered because what we're doing is we're in a new construction home. And we've already painted the ceiling. It's finish coated. We are using white Dove as a color, Benjamin Moore flat on the ceiling, and we're using white Dove color on all of the trim, Benjamin Moore. All of the trim in here, the wood facings, the wood doors, and the windows have all been sprayed with enamel, and they're all done with a satin sheen. So that part of it is over. We'll have other videos on painting a ceiling, we'll have other videos on painting trim, but for now we're focused on the walls today. Prep, start to finish. So what I'm going to do for the demonstration of this video is I'm going to show you how we prep and paint this long wall here as a demonstration and this wall with the window on it. And so we're going to get started right now with our frog tape. We use 1-inch green frog tape. And that's what we're going to tape all of the trim off with. And I'm going to show you how I take a couple of different steps to do that. So go ahead and follow me over here as we begin to tape off the trim. Just simply follow the line of the wood with the tape down. And as you can see, I get it nice and straight. Okay, that's how we would do a door casing where the wall comes together. Now I want to show you two ways that we can do the base, okay? I like to use 1-inch tape, the green frog tape, because it's a lot easier to get a straight line with the 1-inch instead of the 1.5 or 2-inch. It becomes a little bit more difficult. So what we do is you can do it two ways, all right? We like to just do our border just like this. You can see I'm going to follow my top of my base. It's real easy with a piece of 1-inch tape to just stay nice and even and make a straight line all the way down and go back and forth connecting the pieces. Look at how nice that is. We're going to have our nice straight tape line. Now I'm going to show you another way to do it. We have right here what's called a paint masker. Okay, and you'll see these in the stores. We'll have links for all this. We put the frog tape on the wheel. We put the piece of paper, which comes in three different sizes. We can use the 9-inch, the 6-inch paper, and we put it on the roll. Once we do that, it's connected and it gives us a nice tear, a nice rip. Here's where we would use that. If you feel comfortable enough using the masker, you can use it right off of the roll and go like this with the tape attached to it. Now over here I gave you an example of just a single tape line, and here's an example of the tape line with the paper. Now obviously we want to cover the base. So if you want to try to get a straight line and you're just starting, maybe use the tape by itself, and then you can come back over and protect the base and the floor by putting another piece on. So you can do it one of two ways, okay? So we're going to just continue to tape right over to this corner and get this whole area taped before we go on to our next part. Always overlap your last piece of paper. So do you see how I overlapped it? We always want to come back into the last section so we don't have any gaps. This is going to make it more professional and better for when we roll the wall with paint, so we don't get any splatter on any of our nice woodwork. And there you go. There's an entire wall taped and masked. Now here's what else we do. We're just going to go ahead and cover that. And we want to protect the side of the wood here. We don't want to get any paint on it when we're rolling over here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to tape that on there. I have a separate roll of tape that I can just go like that. And I want to make sure that I'm covering all of the wood trim. You don't want to get any paint on the wood trim. Okay, that's the whole goal here. Okay, now we feel like we got this wall protected. We're ready to get some paint going, but we're going to stop it there and tape the rest of the room and then join back in for the next step. Okay, so here we are. We're done masking the area that we're going to do a demonstration on today. We have masked off all the woodwork and the trim and all the doors. We've covered all the outlets with paper and tape, and we have our outlets right here. We took the cover plates off and we have them covered with tape, and you can see how we have put paper and tape on all of the trim around this window. And this is how we want to protect everything before we start painting the walls. So here's our next step right here. Wall prep. This is a pole sander. You can get this anywhere at any box store, and go ahead, get the 150 grit paper pad on there, and then we are going to sand the walls before we paint them. These walls are rough. They just have primer on them now. Even if you're in an existing home and you want to repaint your walls, it's a good idea to go ahead and pole sand them first. We want the paint to be as smooth as possible when it goes on the wall. Okay, so here we go. This is how we do it. You don't have to push hard. Let the sandpaper do all the work. Softly guide it up and down. How we pole sand and prep the wall. We'll do the rest of it. Check in with you in a minute. Okay, here we are. Next step of the process. We've sanded all the walls with our pole sander. Really nice and smooth. Really nice and smooth. It's going to make that top coat of the paint go really good on the wall and feel good and look good at the end. Before we get into painting, before we do anything with the walls, stop that. Okay, so here we are, the next step of the process. We have gone through and pole sanded the two walls that we're doing a demonstration on today. Okay, we have gotten them real nice and smooth, and this is how they should feel. It's going to help the paint flow on the wall real nice and look good at the end. It's not rough or anything like that. The next step that we have to do is we're going to take and look for any imperfections on the wall. Any little holes or cracks or nicks or dings, and we want to spackle them. So we're going to start here. We're going to look this wall up and down all the way to this corner on the two walls we're going to be painting, and we're going to spackle those. So what I've got is the same spackle we use for all of our walls and all the door trim that when we use fill holes. And we'll put links for all this below. But what I'm going to do is I have the light on the wall right here. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to come up to the wall and I can look. And I just kind of go up and down. And I'm looking for any imperfection. And if you see, I just kind of follow the light of the wall. And I just kind of go up and down. And I'm looking for any area that needs to be spackled. And I just kind of visually go real nice up and down. And if you see any kind of holes or cracks, you fill them on the first coat. After the second coat, after the first coat's over, we look again. So we paint the walls, and then after the first coat, when the color's on there, we'll look again to see if we missed anything, and we'll spackle those spots. What's nice about this spackle is it has primer in it. So we can spackle it, sand it, and then we'll spot prime it with our paint. Now here's a little ding right there. I'm just gonna go ahead. I'm not gonna leave it heavy like that. That would not be easy to sand. I'm not gonna go like this either. I wanna just leave just a little bit on there so I can sand it down smooth, okay? So that's an example there. And if I come up here, I see another one. So I'm just gonna continue to lightly fill these areas. And I think for this wall, it's all that I see on this wall. There's one more spot here. Okay. So when I fill areas with spackle, I'm just filling them lightly, not too light and not too thick. When we come back with our sandpaper in a little bit, when this dries, we'll check back in and we'll sand it. Okay, we're gonna do the rest. Hey everyone, here we are, the next step. I've got my piece of 150 grit sandpaper. I'm gonna go back to the spots that we spackled, that we fixed, and we're gonna do a light sand. And you can see I put pieces of tape there. So when you are painting in a room, you can put tape in the spots that you put spackle, so it's easier for you to find it, see it, come back and make sure you don't miss it. So we get everything sanded. So just a real light sand on that spackle. Remember, I didn't put it on too heavy. And then I had just a nice thin layer. So what I'm going to do is take all this tape off. Okay? And I'm going to take my dust brush. I have an old paintbrush here, just a regular dust brush. And I'm going to go and dust off all of the dust that was created from our sanding when we pole sanded and when we sanded patches. Just going to go real light. See all that dust? I want to get all that off of there. And I'm going to go all the way down the wall. And I'm going to do both walls that we're demonstrating on today and make sure we have it all nice and clean. Okay. All right, we went and sanded and dusted and we have a ready clean surface. Now we're going to get into the paint and show you how we do this, okay? So, check back in a second. All right, here we are. We have demonstrated how to paint a room. We are following one step after the next to get us to where we are now. We are ready to begin painting this wall. All of the things we've done in this video, we're just going to repeat. One wall to the next, around until we have all of the walls painted one coat. Then we're going to come back later in a few hours and we're going to put a second coat on all the walls, and that will be the final coat that we do. We'll leave all of the tape on until tomorrow, and then we'll check back in and we'll pull all the tape. So what we have here is two ways you can do this, okay? You can go into any of your stores and get a 9-inch frame and a 9-inch roller cover, pan, and a liner. Okay, this is what you would need if you're just starting out and you don't feel comfortable using a bigger roller setup, okay? This right here is a 14-inch setup with a 14-inch frame. We have a bucket and a liner. Now, obviously, this will cover more wall space when we do our painting. So today, for the demonstration, what we're doing, we're going to use this roller right here. But we do have this here in case you want to start out with something that's a little bit less big. We're using a 3/4 nap a 3/4 nail by Worcester for Pro Do Z, and it's gonna look, it's got white on it with yellow stripes, and I really like this roller. I like the finish, the smooth finish it gives on a wall, and I also like the amount of paint that the 3/4 roller can hold. Now when you're just starting out, you can use a 1/2 inch, it's a little bit more maneuverable, and you just gotta make sure you keep enough paint on there to get a good finish on your wall. We're gonna go over that next. So right now, we're gonna set up our roller setup, and I like to just get it on here and give it a little whack, make sure it's on there and ready to go, okay? And we're going to use today for our painting a 2.5 inch brush by Purdy. We like these brushes. This is what they look like. All right, this is what the brush looks like. This is what we're gonna be using for our painting. And we're also using Sherwin-Williams today, ProMar 200. It's a low sheen eggshell. That's the finish we're putting on the wall, okay? It's a low sheen eggshell. So we're gonna go ahead and get into this. Now before we do any painting, we stir our paint and we strain our paint. And I'll show you an example of how we do this. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just stir it up. I wanna make sure, we did just have it at the store and it got on the shakers and was shaken up, but we're gonna stir it anyways, okay? So once we do that, we'll get this all cleaned off and set it off to the side, okay? Set that off to the side. This is a paint strainer. Sometimes if a paint can sits on a shelf too long in a paint store, it coagulates and it gets clumps and chunks in there. We don't want anything on our nice walls. We've just prepped them. We're ready to go. We want to put a nice finish on them. We want to do this as good and clean and professional as we can. So what we do is we have another person. The easiest way to do it is have another person hold the strainer and then we pour the paint into it. If you're by yourself, like I am now, this is another way you can do it. You can put the strainer over the top of the lid, pick it up, hold on to the strainer, and then dump it out into the pot. If you don't want to do that, you can have an empty gallon can that you can buy at any box store or paint store and have it sitting there, and you put the strainer inside the can. Pour little bits of paint in there at a time and then let it strain into the empty can, and it's easier to do. So we'll have someone help us and we'll check back in. Yep. Okay, here we go. We're gonna pour it right into the strainer. And since we need to use all this paint, we're gonna put the whole gallon in there. And we're gonna make sure it's nice and clean. And we're gonna hold it there, and this becomes our cut pot now, and you can see. Now the best way to do this is you take it and lean it against the liner, and you can take your roller and push the paint out like that. Leave your roller right there, and then you can put the strainer right into that pot and put the lid on, so when you need to use it again, it's right there. Okay, so if you're gonna store it and you have another gallon that you're gonna need for this room, which you will, you're gonna keep the strainer right there so you can keep straining paint and keep it right there. Now I'm gonna use this right here as a cut pot. So what I wanna do is take right like that and put my strainer right over that. And I'm gonna give myself some paint so I can use the cut in. So go like this. Stir it up. And I'm just gonna put a little bit in there. I don't need a lot because I'm just gonna cut in with this amount of paint and leave the rest in the gallon. I always like to clean the paint, okay? And then we're gonna get it like that, and we're gonna let it all flow into the can. And here's what I do. Lean it over the dirty side, put the lid on light, and then work that out of there. Put it into here. Put the lid on it, set that can aside, and then this is going to be my cut pot. This is the pot that I'm going to work out of now to cut in the walls with. Now, if you feel like you strain too much and it's too heavy, you can pour some into your pan because you already strained it. This is clean paint. So I'll pour some of that out of there. And this is our cut pot. This is what we're going to use. I'm just going to set the brush in there and lean it on the side. And in the meantime, I'm going to get our roller started. So we have paint here. I need to get paint on the roller cover. We don't want it to dry out. We want it to stay wet, but we want to work the paint into the cover. We want to get it right in there and get it full of paint so when we put it on the wall, it's not too dry. So we just go over it. I like to get it started, okay? And then we'll show you how we do this. The next step is going to be watching how we cut this in, okay? Now when I take the paint off, I'm going to go like this. You can see in here in the can, okay? I put paint on my brush, okay? And I go like this on side to side. See, it's not dripping. Okay, this is what I'm going to start with. So I'm going to start high and work low. And I'm just going to make sure that I get enough paint on the brush, and I don't want it too heavy. And I want to lay off the bristles nice and soft. Okay, I don't want to create big, heavy brush marks. And we have to cut this in. We want to try to draw a straight line down there as we go. And we go nice and slow. And what's really nice about these brushes is then I'll come back flat and I'll lay it off. Okay, do you see how we've created a nice 3-inch line? First I get in there with the brush into this crack. Then I'm going to come back with some more paint and lay it off flat. Nice and flat. You can see how nice that covers. See how nice and soft I'm going? I'm not going hard like this. Do you see? I'm not pushing hard. I'm not going to leave big sloppy lines. I want everything I do to be real smooth. Nice and light and smooth. When we first cut into a ceiling, we get as close and tight as we can, and on the second coat, we tighten up the cut line. We're able to take this and do as good of a job the first time, as slow as we can, and then on the second coat, we're going to tighten up these cut lines and make them more straight, okay? So this is just getting close on this line, and now we're going to do this all the way down, and you can watch how we do this, okay? If you want, just see how the brush stays about 3 inches down. We have a good cut line, and we follow this down. Okay. Okay, now I only cut a little bit at a time, and then I come back and I work the flat part, okay? And I smooth it all out, okay? Okay, we're not worried about the line being perfectly straight on the first coat. We're going to tighten it up on the second coat. And then I come back and I flatten it out. Okay? First, work your way into the cut line. And come back and fill it in. Back and forth. Okay. Come over here. And I'm going to finish this line right here. I'm only working on one wall at a time. And then I'm going to come back nice and even and connect that line. Nice and light, nice and smooth. If you have an outlet, we want to cut in around an outlet just like this. Nice and smooth. And we follow it all the way down till we get to the base. Then we're going to pick back up on the top of the ceiling once we get this whole corner done. Nice and even. Okay, now we're going to come back over here and you can just sit and what we're doing is when we come back with the roller, we're going to roll right up into these cut lines. We're going to get close to the ceiling and roll right into these lines. Okay, now here's what we're going to do. You can see we have a couple of spots that we spackled. Just going to put a little paint on there. Just spread that out in those spots, cover the spackle spot. Now we're going to roll the wall. I just set my paint in my pot, lean it up like that, and set it off to the side. Here's the best part. We have a rolling pole, Worcester, Sherlock. This part right here locks into the handle, and it extends. So instead of taking a handle by itself and going up and down on the wall, we're going to use this to make it a lot easier. It locks right into the handle, and then we're going to re-dip this, get our paint nice and laid out. It's not dripping anything. If it does, we twist it, and we're going to start our roll. We're going to come on this way, and we're not going to start all the way up to the edge. We don't want to do that. We want to start away from the edge a little bit. And there's not a lot of paint on here to start with, so we're just going to have to keep dipping it, and we work our way into the edge. We're going to work our way into the edge, and I get as close as I can to the tape. Okay, and then we turn it, and we put a little stipple right there. Okay, and now we're going to dip it again. Okay, now we're going to pick it up at the bottom. We're going to stay away from the edge. We're not getting too close. We're going to work our way up and down and then work up to the outlet and get close to the edge from there. Okay. All right, now we're ready. We're kind of away from there. And I get real close to the ceiling. You see how close I got to the ceiling? Okay, now we're going to get into the thick of the wall. The more the roller gets used, the more paint it's going to hold. Okay? Now you see how I have the rolling pole? You can go and see how comfortable you feel with it. And I want to go back and forth I don't use a big section. I make sure that there's not any hard lines and that it's nice and smooth. And I go back and forth over one particular area, up and down, in a small V, okay? Now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna dip it again, and I'm just gonna repeat this process until the whole wall is first coated. And I'm gonna repeat this process on all the walls until it's all first coated. The second coat is going to go the same way, except on the second coat, we're going to tighten up the cut line at the ceiling. We're going to go slower. We're going to see that we have a better visual of where the line should be. And then tomorrow, when we check back in and the room is all done, we pull the tape, you'll see how nice and clean everything looks with our cut lines. Okay? So what I do is, here we go. I'm not going to come out here. I start right where I left off. I kind of cover that line and I'm just working up to the ceiling. I go a little bit this way and then I want to work back into the section that I already painted. You have to keep it wet and you have to keep it moving. You do not want it to dry up on you. You got to stay going through the whole wall until it's done. You want to make sure you're not in a really hot room. The heat will dry it too fast. You want a little bit of a cooler environment, and the humidity also should not be too high. Okay, see how I just worked right back into the last section? Because I have everything covered with tape so well, I can come right down to the bottom if I want and touch the base with the roller real softly. And I just real softly work back into each section, overlapping the last one. I don't want to go out too far on the wall. I want to stay real close because I want to make sure I get enough paint on the wall. I don't want to leave the wall too light. When both coats are applied, it's going to look great. I always put a little stipple by the outlets. I want it all to look the same. This rolling pole really comes in handy because it gives you a much easier way to paint a wall instead of people who try to paint with just a handle. Up and down, nice and even. Always working back to the last section. Okay? Just follow me as I finish this wall. Good. We want to work our way into the corner, so we'll come right back out here and give ourselves enough space to get all the paint off. And when it's a little bit more dry, we'll work our way to the corner real slow and get as close as we can. We don't want to scrape up the wall with paint, the other wall that we're working towards. Nice and slow. See how close I'm getting? I'm not leaving a hard line of paint. Nice and smooth. And I'll come back this way and I'll even it out. And there we have it. What we're going to do now is we're going to finish this room just like I showed you from start to finish. All the walls will be done the same way. Tomorrow we're going to pull all the tape. We'll see all the paint and the room is dried up and we'll have a nice finished product to look at. So hopefully this is helpful, and thanks a lot for watching, and we'll check in with you next time. We're going to get this all done. We're going to put 2 coats on everything. We're going to tighten up our cut line on the second coat, pull tape tomorrow, check back in, see how it's done. When we walk away from a paint setup, We always take some plastic and cover it up because we know we're going to have to use it while we're waiting for the second coat. So we just take plastic. If you don't have plastic, you can use a garbage bag. And we like to get the paint on the roller like that. And then we just don't want it to dry out. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cover it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to make sure we kind of go like this. And we'll get the paint covered like this while we're waiting to come back. And there we go. And it'll be ready when we come back to do the second coat. And then our paintbrush, if you have the leftover plastic that the roller came in, they're really handy because if you don't want your brush to dry out, you can put it right inside there and fold it up and keep it until you're ready to go on the second coat. So thanks for watching, and we'll check you soon. Hey everyone, and here we have the final product. This is the end of a finished room. This is what it looks like with 2 coats, walls all smooth, and everything we walked you through got us to this point, 2 coats. So I'll just let you kind of walk around here and see how nice this all looks. And this is the end of our video.